because it's easier to get that juggy than it is them pills now. Especially now, girl. You could break your fucking leg completely off, and them niggas would be like, okay, here go your Motrin 800. Well, hello there, love bugs. Hello there, Bellas. If you have not already done so, please remember to like, share the Facebook, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com for these Mick shades in red. And if you are not already a part of our book club, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, yes you, can be privy to all the shenanigans before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Now, let's continue talking about Jackson Family Values, Memoirs of Madness by Margaret Maldonado, not officially a Jackson. Wow. Jermaine, Catherine, and Joseph flew to Taiwan, where Michael was now torn. To all the world, the gesture was to show support for Michael. What the press didn't know was that in his pocket, Jermaine had a letter of intent for the Jackson Family Honors show, which he was determined to get Michael to sign. Ooh, Jermaine, you nigga, you. He finally succeeded, but Catherine was furious that Jermaine and Joseph hounded Michael into signing it at a time when Michael was under a doctor's care for exhaustion and being fed intravenously. The fallout from the M scandal was devastating to Jermaine and his show. The entertainers who had committed to the program began to drop out by the handful, and no one was stepping forward to take their place. Woo! By the time Halloween was upon us, the entire M mess had become a feeding frenzy for teams of attorneys on both sides. Each side was playing its case out in the press, but fan support for Michael seemed to be holding firm. Didn't I tell you? The moonwalkers don't play. At this point, he was continuing his world tour and had moved from Moscow to Tel Aviv to Gstaad, Switzerland, where he camped out with a few of his child friends in Elizabeth Taylor's chalet in open defiance of his advisors. Now, let me say this again. Virgos, I don't know where they are. I know you be like, nay, you've been giving Virgos the mess. Yeah, I've been giving them the mess recently because they be oblivious. Just because you a Virgo and you around here saying, oh, my heart is so good. It's good. No, baby. No. Just because you feel like your heart is good does not mean that people will not dig in your ass. If Catherine hadn't been out of town on tour with Janet, the Halloween party would have gone perfectly. With Catherine gone, though, and Jermaine in Switzerland, Joseph was in charge and pushing his weight around. The call he placed to Randy's estranged wife, Eliza, was done out of pure malice. He knew it would create a problem for his youngest son. What he didn't realize was that it would also create a problem for himself. When Randy discovered that Eliza was at the front gate with their daughter, Stefana, he confronted Joseph and the two of them got into a scuffle. Then Joseph headed toward his bedroom. Fearing Joseph was going for his guns, Randy grabbed onto his father's shirt, ripping the material and pulling the elder Jackson down a flight of stairs. By the time I arrived on the scene, By the time I arrived on the scene, a security guard was pointing a gun at Randy, attempting to throw him off the property. What I hadn't realized was that Joseph had told the security guard that Randy was drunk as an excuse to give him the boot. Obviously, there was no liquor at a children's party, but then no one has ever said that the Jackson security guards were hired for their intellect. Well, that was a dig. Randy eventually left, totally humiliated. Later that night, he telephoned in tears. "Can you believe how my father treated me?" he said, sobbing. There was little that I could say in the way of comfort except to tell him that I would update Jermaine when the two of us spoke and ask him to speak to Joseph about his behavior. What Jermaine gonna do? The more I thought about what happened, the angrier I got. I picked up the phone and called JJ to vent my frustration. I can't take it anymore. I really can't. I told JJ when I reached him at his cousin Elizabeth's house, the combination of Leah DeBongo, your father, and the circus of press at the front gate is too much. I would rather starve than deal with this one more day. I could almost hear Jermaine's ego puffing up over the long-distance line. I am a Jackson. I'm not moving out. I have to live where there's security. Just get that out of your head. That's not happening. When I told him about Joseph's behavior, Jermaine focused the attention away from the craziness of his father and blamed Randy. The more we talked, the more excited Jermaine became. He was sputtering things like, "Fuck Randy," and "Randy can't control his women." When Jermaine returned to the United States, he was certainly no worse for wear. He vacillated wildly between telling me how much he loved me and smothering me with attention and tossing me around and cursing the ground I walked on. "If you ever leave me, Peggy," Jermaine sneered, "I'm going to rip them titties right off your chest and put them right on Entertainment Tonight." He would prance around the room holding out his hands as if he were holding my boobs and humming the Entertainment Tonight theme. Now that's hilarious. Girl, you can't tell me you wasn't laughing, but that's funny. Alejandra became my relief valve as the pressure began to build. Because the security guards had the ability to listen into any room through the intercom system, Alejandra and I would creep into my bathroom, turn on all the water, smoke cigarettes, and talk. She wasn't a professional psychologist, but she had the most important quality. She was there. The more we talked, the more hopeless I knew the situation was, and the more frightened for my safety I became. Girl, she is plotting on your nigga! Every day seemed to bring new drama, none more unexpected than the surprise incident that occurred on November 8th, 1993, while the family was in Phoenix, Arizona for the funeral of Joseph's father, Bud. Without warning, the gates were opened and 16 undercover police officers stormed the Havenhurst house armed with a search warrant. They went to work sifting through drawers, closets, and cupboards, but concentrated their search in Michael's room. A locksmith picked the lock to gain access to his area of the house. The men proceeded to tear through his belongings, which Catherine had carefully preserved exactly as Michael had left them. The security guards called her in Phoenix, and she rushed back in time to find the house in disarray. Michael heard about the search while he was in Mexico. He reacted with what the media described as a breakdown that sent Elizabeth Taylor back to his side. Michael completed the last of his performances in Mexico and was jetted out of the country to England, where staff at the famous Charter Nightingale Clinic took charge. As far as the world knew, Michael Jackson had simply dropped out of sight. On November 12th, we learned that Michael had canceled the remainder of his dangerous tour because of his addiction to painkillers. The media went crazy and redoubled their efforts to keep a 24-hour vigil at the front gates of Havenhurst. I have always made it very clear that I do not have a problem with those of us who have struggled with some kind of addictions. I have said several times before, I do have food addictions, and mentally, it is a struggle. Nobody is above addiction. Nobody. Not even Michael Jackson, moonwalkers. Anybody, it can easily grab hold of you, especially them opiates, man. It can turn your world upside down right quick. If some of you all heard me tell this story before, my bad. When I was a probation officer, right? This shit breaks my heart. It was this police officer that had broke his arm. He was given opiates. And then he loved the opiates. He loved it. You know, it just makes all the pain go away. Okay. So he was addicted to the Percocets. He tried to get the Percocets, but then it became difficult for him to do it. Somebody introduced heroin to him. Now he's a police officer that's shooting heroin. And one day I was in court and I seen this same police handcuffs on him. Oh my God. He turned to the audience because they always ask you, is there anything that you want to say? He turned to the audience and said, y'all stay away from them painkillers because I broke my arm. Now I'm here. So it can happen to anybody. And when I watched that show, Intervention, 9 times out of 10, it starts with somebody hurting something and then they're prescribed opiates. And before you know it, they out of here. They on heroin because it's easier to get that juggy than it is them pills now. Especially now, girl. You could break your fucking leg completely off. And them niggas would be like, okay, here go your Motrin 800. I told Jermaine I would be moving out of Havenhurst on December 11th. And as that date grew closer, he actually mellowed into a kinder, gentler soul than he had been in the past several years. Despite everything we had been through, there was a part of me that wanted to reach out and console him. His pain was extreme and obvious, and witnessing it wrenched my own soul and sensibilities. Jermaine had some wonderful qualities that I will never forget. Unfortunately, in the last years of our relationship, they were hidden with increasing frequency under a thick blanket of anger. Perhaps he was scared of what he was becoming. I knew for sure that I didn't want to be near it. When the moving van arrived as planned on December 11th, 1993, the movers packed up my clothes, a few TVs, a couple of beds, my armoire, and the kids' toys. As I got into my car and drove away, I looked in the rear view mirror and saw the gates close behind me. I couldn't help but recall what Dee Dee had said years before. Remember, Margaret, when those gates close, they stay closed forever. On the day I left Havenhurst, Michael Jackson entered the United States to face the allegations against him. Given the legal entanglements that the case presented, Michael decided to strike a settlement with the boy and his father rather than spend endless years in litigation. Every member of the family was disappointed in Michael's decision to settle the case because we all knew he was innocent. At my new house, I sorted through clothes and boxes as I started to set up house. For me, the move had a calming effect. I didn't miss having a cook, a maid, a pool, or a screening room at my disposal, which was hard for Jermaine to understand. He couldn't fathom how I could be happy to leave all that behind. Jermaine continued calling every day, several times a day. He was an emotional person, and given the tension he was under after I left, I thought he might be in danger of having a total breakdown. One moment he was my best friend, the next my worst enemy. He cried, he screamed, he even threatened. Regardless of how hostile or abusive his language became, I reminded myself to remain calm and be pleasant. I didn't want to provoke him and have him storm over to my apartment. I thought I would treat him like an adult, show him respect, and hope for the best. While I continued to pursue my career, I approached Jermaine about child support. Wrong move, girl. Wrong move, girl. Girl.